You thought you lost your attention, but attention is never lost, only taken. And the scariest part, you signed the contract without noticing. This story explores where your attention goes each day, who profits from it, and what happens when you finally realize your focus has been quietly harvested by forces that don't serve you. As always, there's no need to follow every word. Just let the story flow over you. If you drift away, that's perfect. Let's begin. There was a woman who kept perfect accounts of everything in her life. Every dollar spent, every calorie consumed, every minute allocated to tasks. Her name was Victoria Chun, and she was 42 years old. A financial analyst by profession, a tracker by nature. She measured everything that could be measured. Her apartment had spreadsheets for groceries, utilities, savings, investments. She wore devices that counted her steps, monitored her sleep, tracked her heart rate. She logged her time in 15-minute increments, categorizing each segment: work, exercise, meals, leisure. Victoria believed that what gets measured gets managed, that awareness of how resources were spent allowed for optimization. That data was power, but there was one resource Victoria had never tracked, never accounted for, never really examined despite it being the most valuable thing she possessed: her attention. Where did her attention actually go each day? Not where she intended it to go. She could plan that, schedule it, allocate it theoretically. But where did it actually land? What captured it? What consumed it? And most importantly, who profited from where her attention went? The question first occurred to her on an ordinary Tuesday. She'd sat down to work on an important project at 9 a.m. At 5 p.m., she looked up and realized she'd accomplished almost nothing substantive. 8 hours had passed. But where had they gone? She checked her time-tracking app. It showed her at her desk the entire day, but her actual output was minimal. The hours had disappeared into something. But what? That night, Victoria decided to track her attention the way she tracked everything else, to create an accounting of where her focus actually went, not where it was supposed to go, but where it really went. The results were devastating. For 1 week, Victoria tracked her attention with brutal honesty. Not scheduled time, she already knew how. She allocated her calendar, but actual attention, where her focus landed moment by moment throughout each day. She used a simple method, setting a timer to ping every 15 minutes, then noting where her attention was at that exact moment, not where it had been, or where it was supposed to be, but where it actually was. Day 1 results showed that intentional focus on chosen tasks was only 23%. Email and messages, checking and responding, took 31%. Social media, scrolling and reading, 19%. News and content consumption, 14%. And scattered, unfocused time, 13%. She stared at the data in shock. Less than a quarter of her attention was going to things she'd consciously chosen to focus on. The rest was being pulled, captured, extracted by various attention merchants who'd designed systems to harvest her focus. Days 2 through 7 showed similar patterns. Despite her best intentions, despite her productivity systems, and time blocking and careful planning, the majority of her attention was being siphoned off by sources that contributed nothing to her actual goals or values. Worse, she was exhausted. The constant fragmentation of attention. Checking email every few minutes, scrolling between tasks, responding to notifications. It left her mentally depleted despite not actually accomplishing much of substance. Victoria created a new spreadsheet, this one more disturbing than any financial accounting she'd ever done. She calculated the economics of her attention. Daily attention budget. 16 waking hours equals 960 minutes of available attention. The actual distribution showed that chosen focus got only 221 minutes. Email and messaging, 298 minutes. Social media, 182 minutes. News and content, 134 minutes. Scattered time, 125 minutes. Looking at the value analysis, activities contributing to her goals and values took up only 221 minutes, 23%. Activities benefiting attention merchants, 614 minutes, 64%. And time wasted through fragmentation, 125 minutes, 13%. She was giving away nearly 2/3 of her most valuable, non-renewable resource to entities that monetized her focus while giving her nothing real in return. It was like discovering she'd been writing checks to strangers for years, draining her account while thinking she was managing it carefully. Victoria began researching the attention economy, how tech companies, media organizations, advertisers, and platforms competed for human attention and monetized it. She learned about attention engineering, the deliberate design of apps and platforms to maximize engagement, which really meant maximizing time spent scrolling, clicking, the psychological triggers built into interfaces, the slot machine mechanics of social media, the notification systems designed to interrupt and redirect focus. She learned that her attention was worth approximately 50 cents to $2 per hour to advertisers, depending on demographics. That meant the 614 minutes daily she gave to attention. Merchants was worth approximately $10 to $20 per day to them. Over a year, $3,650 to $7,300. Not a fortune, but she was essentially working for free for these platforms, paying them in attention while they profited from it. More importantly, the cost to her wasn't just a monetary value. It was what she wasn't doing with that attention. The books she wasn't reading, the creative work she wasn't producing, the relationships she wasn't fully present in, the life she wasn't actually experiencing because her attention was constantly elsewhere. She calculated opportunity cost. Those 614 minutes daily of captured attention, if redirected to chosen focus, could mean 10 hours per week for creative work, 520 hours annually. Deep reading for 90 minutes daily, 547 hours annually. Fully present conversations with loved ones, actually experiencing life instead of consuming content about other people's lives. The real cost of her attention being colonized wasn't what she was paying, it was what she wasn't receiving. A life actually lived, rather than constantly interrupted. Victoria decided to attempt an experiment. Reclaim her attention. Stop giving it away unconsciously. Become intentional about where her focus went and to whom. She started with what seemed like a simple step, removing social media apps from her phone, not deleting accounts. That felt too dramatic. Just removing the apps so that accessing them required deliberate choice rather than mindless reflex. The first day was revealing. She reached for her phone to check social media approximately 40 times. 40 times her hand moved automatically toward the device, her thumb seeking the app that wasn't there anymore. She hadn't realized how thoroughly the habit had embedded itself, how completely her attention had been trained to fragment, to seek micro-hits of novelty and stimulation every few minutes. Without the apps, she felt anxious, twitchy, the same feeling she imagined people felt when quitting smoking. The constant low-level craving for the thing that had been providing regular dopamine hits. She'd been addicted to attention fragmentation without realizing it. Her focus had been colonized so gradually, so completely, that she'd stopped noticing it was happening. Day 2, she disabled all non-essential notifications. No pings, dings, buzzes except for actual phone calls. The silence was profound and uncomfortable. She kept checking her phone anyway. Phantom notifications, creating phantom urgency. Day 3, she deleted news apps. She could check news on her computer once daily if she wanted, but not on her phone, not constantly, not as an attention reflex. Day 4, she set specific times for email. 9 a.m., 1 p.m., 4 p.m., not constantly, not reactively, not giving email providers permission to interrupt her focus whenever they wanted. Each removal created discomfort. Each one revealed how thoroughly her attention had been captured, how little agency she'd been exercising over her own focus. But each one also created space, quiet, actual gaps between activities instead of constant stimulation. And in those gaps, something unexpected happened. Her actual thoughts emerged, ideas she hadn't had space for, observations she'd been too distracted to notice. The felt experience of being alive instead of constantly consuming content about life. With 614 minutes daily reclaimed from attention merchants, Victoria faced a new question. What did she actually want to focus on? The answer wasn't immediately clear. She'd spent so long having her attention directed by external forces, notifications, algorithms, other people's priorities. She'd lost touch with what she genuinely wanted to attend to. She spent a week just noticing what naturally drew her focus when it wasn't being constantly hijacked. What did she think about during walks when she wasn't listening to podcasts? What did she observe when she wasn't photographing everything for social media? What did she want to create when she wasn't consuming others' creations? Patterns emerged. She wanted to write, not for publication or performance, but because she had thoughts that needed external form. She'd been consuming endless written content while never producing any of her own. She wanted to be fully present in conversations, actually listening instead of formulating responses or checking her phone under the table. She wanted to notice beauty, architecture, light, the changing seasons. She walked the same route daily but had barely seen it because her attention was always on her phone. She wanted to learn things deeply rather than skim surfaces, to read actual books instead of endless articles, to develop skills through practice rather than watching others perform them. She wanted to experience boredom and see what emerged from it. She'd been fleeing from any empty moment for so long that she'd forgotten that boredom was often the precursor to creativity. Victoria created a new attention budget, this one intentional. Reclaimed daily attention, 614 minutes. Intentional allocation, deep work, writing, creative projects, 180 minutes. Deep reading, 90 minutes. Fully present relationships, 90 minutes. Embodied activity like walking and exercise, 60 minutes. Unstructured attention, boredom, wandering, 60 minutes. Necessary reactive tasks, email and admin, 90 minutes. Buffer and flexibility, 44 minutes. For the first time in years, she was consciously directing her attention rather than having it extracted by attention merchants. Reclaiming attention wasn't smooth. Victoria faced resistance from multiple directions. External resistance came first. Apps and platforms don't want to lose your attention. They make it easy to engage and difficult to disengage. She had to actively fight against pullback mechanisms. Are you sure you want to disable notifications? We miss you. Your friends are wondering where you are. The platforms deployed guilt, fear of missing out, social pressure, anything to recapture her attention. Social resistance came next. Friends and colleagues expected immediate responsiveness. When Victoria stopped checking messages constantly, people complained. Why didn't you respond? Did you see my text? The expectation of instant attention had become the norm, and violating it created friction. But the hardest resistance was internal. Her own brain had been trained for years to expect constant stimulation. When she sat down to focus on one thing for an extended period, her mind rebelled, sought distraction, generated urgent-feeling tasks that would justify fragmentation. The first week of deep work sessions was almost impossible. She'd sit down to write, and within 5 minutes would feel overwhelming urges to check something, look something up, see what was happening in the world. Her attention span had been so thoroughly eroded that rebuilding it required deliberate, uncomfortable practice. But gradually, slowly, her capacity for sustained focus began to return, like a muscle that had atrophied, being rebuilt through exercise. Week 1, she could focus for maybe 10 minutes before attention wandered. Week 2, 15 to 20 minutes of sustained focus became possible. Week 4, 30 to 45 minutes. Week 8, she could maintain focus for 90-minute sessions, not because the work became easier or more interesting, but because she was reclaiming neural pathways that had been colonized by attention merchants, retraining her brain to focus rather than fragment. 3 months into her attention reclamation project, Victoria discovered something that changed her understanding of the entire endeavor. The goal hadn't been productivity. She'd thought she was reclaiming attention to accomplish more, to be more effective, to optimize her output. But that was just another form of the productivity mindset that had made her vulnerable to attention colonization in the first place. The belief that time and attention existed only to be maximized for output. What she actually discovered was presence, being fully in her own life instead of constantly distracted from it. When she read a book with full attention, she wasn't just processing more information. She was actually experiencing the act of reading, the pleasure of language, the unfolding of ideas, the relationship with the author's mind. When she had conversations with full attention, not checking her phone or planning her response, she was actually connecting with other humans instead of just exchanging information. When she walked with full attention, she noticed the world, the specific quality of light that day, the expression on a stranger's face, the way seasons shifted almost imperceptibly. Her life became richer, not because she was accomplishing more, but because she was actually experiencing what she was doing instead of constantly thinking about the next thing or consuming content about other people's experiences. The attention merchants had stolen more than her time. They'd stolen her presence, her ability to be fully in her own life. And reclaiming attention wasn't about productivity. It was about reclaiming the capacity to actually live instead of constantly being elsewhere. 1 year after beginning her attention accounting, Victoria conducted a cost-benefit analysis, comparing her old patterns to new ones. Before conscious attention management, average daily intentional focus was 3 to 4 hours. She felt constantly busy but accomplished little of substance, exhausted from fragmentation, disconnected from her own life. Relationships were superficial, present physically but absent mentally. Creative output was minimal. Her sense of agency was low, and she gave 10+ hours daily to attention merchants. After conscious attention management, average daily intentional focus was 8 to 10 hours. She accomplished substantive work on chosen projects. Her energy was higher with fewer context switches. She was present in her own life. Relationships were deeper because she was actually available. Creative output was significant. Her sense of agency was high, and she gave only 1 to 2 hours daily to attention merchants by choice. The difference wasn't just quantitative, it was qualitative. She felt like she was actually living her life rather than having it fragmented and harvested by forces optimizing for their benefit, not hers. She'd written 3 long essays she cared about, read 24 books cover to cover, had conversations she remembered, noticed beauty regularly, created instead of only consuming, been present for moments that mattered instead of experiencing them through a phone screen while simultaneously scrolling. Not perfect, not always intentional, but conscious, chosen, hers. The attention merchant still wanted her focus, still designed interfaces to capture it, still optimized for engagement, but she'd learned to see the mechanisms, to recognize when her attention was being pulled versus when she was directing it. And that recognition created choice, the ability to say, "No, my attention belongs to me. I'll direct it where I choose, not where you've designed me to direct it." Victoria understood now that attention accounting wasn't a one-time project. It was an ongoing practice. The forces trying to colonize attention weren't going away. They were getting more sophisticated, more psychologically manipulative, more effective at capturing focus. Staying conscious of where attention went required vigilance, not paranoid or rigid vigilance, but gentle, persistent awareness. She developed rituals. In the morning, before opening any devices, she'd sit for 5 minutes asking, "What do I actually want to focus on today? Where do I want my attention to go?" Throughout the day, periodic check-ins, Is my attention where I want it right now? Am I choosing this focus, or has it been captured? In the evening, a brief review. Where did my attention actually go today? Am I satisfied with those allocations? Not self-flagellation when attention wandered or got captured. Just noticing, creating consciousness, gentle redirection. She also helped others begin their own attention accounting. Started a small group that met monthly to discuss attention allocation, share strategies for reclamation, support each other in maintaining consciousness in a culture designed to fragment focus. The group wasn't militant or dogmatic. They weren't anti-technology or promoting some pure, unmediated life. Just people recognizing that attention was valuable, that it was being harvested without consent, that consciousness about where focus went created freedom. Victoria knew she'd never be perfect at attention management, would sometimes fall back into mindless scrolling, would sometimes give hours to attention merchants without realizing it, but she'd learned the fundamental truth. Attention was currency, the most valuable currency, and becoming conscious of where it went, who profited from it, and whether those allocations aligned with her actual values. That consciousness changed everything. Your attention belongs to you. You get to direct it, but only if you're aware enough to notice when it's being taken. Where did your attention go today? Not where you scheduled it or where you intended it. Where did it actually land? How many hours did you give to attention merchants? Platforms, apps, algorithms designed to capture and monetize your focus? How many moments were you actually present versus physically present, but mentally elsewhere? Your attention is the most valuable resource you possess. More valuable than money. You can make more money, but you can't make more time or attention. What you focus on literally becomes your life. And right now, most people's attention is being systematically harvested by entities optimizing for profit, not well-being. Every app notification, every algorithmic feed, every auto-playing video is designed to capture your focus and keep it as long as possible. You're not weak for being captured. These systems employ teams of psychologists and behavioral economists, specifically to make them irresistible, but you can become conscious, can start tracking where attention actually goes, can reclaim it intentionally. Consider this: how much of today was actually yours? How much did you give away unconsciously? Tomorrow you can begin accounting, not obsessively, not perfectly, just consciously. Notice where your attention wants to go. Notice what captures it. Notice whether you're directing it or it's being extracted. Then gently, persistently reclaim what's yours. Your attention, your presence, your actual life. It belongs to you, not to the attention merchants. But for now, let all of this settle. Let your thoughts drift. Let your attention rest. Tomorrow is for reclaiming. Tonight is for releasing. Sleep deeply. Dream peacefully. Wake ready to direct your focus consciously.